Hi, everybody, and welcome to the DRF Breeding Report. I'm Dan Illman along with Nicole Russo, and this week we will recap the Fasig-Tipton November sale. As we take a look at the top 5 prices of this sale, Nicole, very successful. A lot of high-priced mares and broodmare prospects. The average price was up, the buyback rate was down, and this market continues to be healthy.
Oh, absolutely. And I think the buyback rate was a really important and really interesting indicator of the health of the market last night. Anytime you get a select sale like this, you know, buyers don't want to let these horses go if they're not getting what they perceive as the right value for them either. And anytime you see a buyback rate under 20% at a selective sale like this, it's very, very healthy. Especially the buyback rate for the weanling portion of the night was also very healthy, finishing just a tick above 17%. And that's a great indicator of health because with the weanlings, if you're not getting a solid price on them, you're going to hold on to them and sell them a bit later down the road as a yearling, perhaps when they've had time to mature. So especially, I think, the good buyback rate for those weanlings, followed by a strong market for the mares. Just a great sale across the board last night.
No surprise to the top price offering was that's the multiple champion Songbird. We're going to take a look at her winning the 2015 Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. She went for $9.5 million. For a second there, I thought we had a shot at a record.
Yeah, definitely. It kind of hovered there at 9.5, and the ring was absolutely electric. Of course, the record price belongs to Horse of the Year, Harvard de Grace, also sold by Rick Porter at the Fasig November sale 5 years ago. Also purchased by Mandy Pope, who signed the ticket for Songbird. She says her accountant's not going to be happy with her. Songbird now about to join Harvard de Grace and the rest of Mandy Pope's broodmare band here in Lexington. Pope hasn't quite decided yet who she will send Songbird to for her first breeding next spring. But she said all of the usual suspects, leading sires Capit, Galileo, Frankel, all in play at the moment as she considers.
Nicole, last week you did mention that Mandy Pope would be very active at this Fasig-Tipton November sale. You also mentioned that mares like Teppan might attract international appeal. No surprise there. We're going to go back to Teppan's victory against males in the Breeders' Cup Mile at Keeneland. She sold for a pretty penny in full to the great Curlin, who of course sired Good Magic to win the Breeders' Cup Juvenile last week. She was knocked down for $8 million.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, that's higher than I thought Teppan would go. She's a very nice mare, 2-time champion, Breeders' Cup Mile heroine, Royal Ascot heroine. I thought she'd be in the $6 million and up range. Coolmore has been watching this mare for more than 2 years. They were not going home without her last night. She will now head to Ireland and join their broodmare band, and she'll be bred to international titan Galileo next year after delivering her first foal to the cover of Curlin, who's an interesting matchup. Of course, he's best known for his running on dirt. Teppan best known for her exploits on turf, but some crossover potential. Curlin's by the versatile Smart Strike that ran very, very well in his only start on turf when he was beaten by a Breeders' Cup winner. And Teppan herself, a Grade 3 winner on dirt as a juvenile. So I think they're a very interesting matchup, delivering a foal now for the International Coolmore operation, which of course has a lot of horses who do a little bit of everything.
A hard-knocking 4-year-old filly selling as a racing or broodmare prospect, Dora, got a very nice update on Breeders' Cup weekend as her sire Dubawi sired Wuheda to win the Breeders' Cup filly and mare turf. Dora on her own, a true world traveler. We're going to take a look at her victory in the Canadian Stakes in Woodbine earlier this year. This was a very popular victory for Dora, who did some excellent work, and when you look at her pedigree, it's all turf and class.
Yeah, absolutely, and it was great to see Wahida win the filly and mare turf. First Breeders' Cup winner for Dubawi, who's really an up-and-coming international standout young sire. I think we'll be seeing perhaps more and more of his progeny winning these big international races in coming years. And Dora was offered as a racing or broodmare prospect. Certainly probably has some upside on the track. She she was purchased by White Birch Farm, and trainer Chad Brown was standing right there as Peter Brandt, owner of White Birch, signed the ticket for her. So perhaps they will put her back into training with somebody who certainly knows how to handle a good turf mare. We'll have to see what they decide with her.
For the last several months, we discussed the late stallion Scat Daddy's impact on the breed and how his broodmare prospects would certainly go for a pretty penny. And nickname seen here winning the Frizette Stakes is a 2-year-old filly, the Grade 1 Frizette. She went for $3 million. This horse has a nice mixture in her pedigree of precociousness, dirt, turf, sprint, and route.
Oh, very much so. And she's purchased by Carrie Radcliffe, who's becoming more and more of a force commercially here in the United States in recent years. Was very active at Fasig-Tipton Saratoga for the yearling sale. Was very active at Keeneland September for the yearling sale. Really loves Scat Daddy. Has been going hard after some horses from his final crops. And nickname, as you mentioned, gives her some great versatility as she starts a broodmare band. Nicknamed a Grade 1 winning juvenile on dirt. She could certainly be crossed with a dirt-type leading stallion such as Taffet. But, you know, Scat Daddy, as we've discussed, such a good turf sire. You could also go to a powerhouse commercial sire like Warfront with her. I think this is a very exciting young broodmare prospect.
Her fellow foal of 2013, selling as a racing or broodmare prospect, Catch a Glimpse, and she went for $3 million. We're going to take a look at her win in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies Turf. She was Horse of the Year in Canada, champion filly, champion grass mare. She came back as a 3-year-old to win the Belmont Oaks, and she's got such a strong pedigree as well as a half to Old Forester, just a hard-hitting horse who's become a solid stallion.
Yeah, very much so. He's a terrific stallion up in Canada, very consistent, very good stallion. And you want to talk about consistent stallions. The late City Death got you horses who could do a little bit of everything. Dirt, turf, short, long. We've really seen his versatility in recent years. He's been a big loss, and Japanese interest, very interested in City's Death, perhaps due to that versatility. Last night, in addition to this purchase of Catch a Glimpse, Japanese interest also picked up Eclipse World Champion Finest City by the late stallion for $1.5 million. And Catch a Glimpse purchased by K.I. Farm. She'll almost certainly be bred next spring to Lord Canola, K.I. Farm breeder of that stallion, and they're working really hard to establish him as one of the next leading sires in Japan. He's done very well with his 2-year-olds, and Catch a Glimpse certainly a terrific 2-year-old herself.
Not only was it a powerhouse market for quality fillies and mares, but the weanlings sold quite well also. Let's take a look at the catalog page for this Street Sense filly. And you look at this pedigree. By Street Sense, a Kentucky Derby winner, out of a half-sister to Super Saver, a Kentucky Derby winner. Great pedigree, but were you surprised this horse went for a cool $1 million?
You know, a little bit so. Just because Street Sense, while he's been very consistent, especially with his fillies, he's not who you think of just yet as a powerhouse commercial sire. And, you know, I was surprised it went that high, frankly. I think everybody was, because $1 million is actually a record price for a weanling at Fasig-Tipton November, a record that was matched later in the night, which we'll get to in a minute. But, you know, going this high, I think the connections who bought this filly simply just wanted her and weren't going to go home without her. They were bidding on her full sister, Grade 1 winner Callback. When that one came to auction, the broodmare Quickest, really a mare with a lot of upside still in production. And when you get the right people bidding on these horses and in competition, and neither one wants to go home without the horse in question, you see things like this happen at these select sales.
Deep pedigree, deep Phipps pedigree all the way back, but as you mentioned, a full sister to that Grade 1 winner Callback and all those Kentucky Derby winners. Street Sense, of course, on top, the dam a half to Super Saver. We expected American Pharoah's first crop weanlings to sell very well. They did do very well. And this was a filly that you spotlighted last week. The American Pharoah filly out of graded stakes winner Untouched Talent, making her a 3/4 sister, is it, Nicole, to Bodemeister?
Yes, untouched talent, the dam of Bodemeister, who's bred on the same cross as this filly. Bodemeister, of course, by Empire Maker, who's American Pharoah's grandsire. And just with all factors combined, I thought that if American Pharoah had a true breakout horse from his first weanlings, it would be this one. Just a well-bred filly who, by all accounts, has been a star from day one. And American Pharoah currently averaging just under $500,000 with his first weanlings to auction. He also had another cross the $500,000 threshold last night. He's already had one sold for $500,000 today at Keeneland, where the mixed sale season is continuing. We'll bring you a little bit more on that later, but just really off to a roaring commercial debut as this next chapter of his stud career begins.
How do they look? Is it too early to say that American Pharoah is stamping his get, or can you really see that these are athletic weanlings? Obviously, it's early in their development. And also, are there any other first crop weanling sires that caught your eye with the appearance of their progeny?
Right. Well, I think the key words you used there are early in their development. It's hard to, really truly evaluate the weanlings because you look at them and at this stage of growth, horses can be a little rump high, a little unsure of themselves. They're still developing. But the thing I am seeing from the American Pharoahs that I really love is they have his shoulder and his ease of movement, and they have some beautiful long strides going already. And that's really what I'm hearing from these early buyers that they like about the weanlings is their athleticism. American Pharoah, a well-built horse, but to me, he was never one who really reached out and grabbed you when he was simply standing still. It was when he moved, and that efficiency and ease of movement that really caught my eye and really helped make him so good on the track. And I think that's the most important thing, perhaps, that he can give these foals, and I'm really seeing that from most of them so far. As far as other first-crop weanling sires, as we've discussed, this is a really strong, accomplished group on the track. Champion Honor Code, he's bred to be a stallion by AP Indy from the female family of Serena's Song. And, I really liked what I've seen from his first foals as well so far. Last night at Fasig-Tipton, there was a star filly sold for $300,000 from his first crop to September Farm. The filly is a half to Royal Mo, who's a graded stakes winner, to Dora from the Cape Stakes winner. And she just really comported herself well on the sale grounds, very alert, very sharp, really leggy, and moved like an athlete. So, if that's what Honor Code is going to throw, he's in terrific shape as well.
Well, on the heels of a very successful Fasig-Tipton November sale, really the fall season is still beginning from an auction standpoint. Keeneland begins this afternoon, and you can follow all of Nicole's updates live from the Keeneland Sales Pavilion on Twitter at DRF Russo, and follow all of our DRF breeding reporters at DRF Breeding on Twitter. We'll see you next week on the DRF Breeding Report.